For decades, we have searched for longevity in the most complicated places: expensive supplements, cutting-edge gene therapies, futuristic drugs that promise to slow aging at the cellular level. And yet, some of the most powerful influences on how we age are hiding in plain sight, quietly shaping our biology every single day. One of them may already be sitting in your refrigerator. Greek yogurt, not the sugar-loaded versions marketed as healthy snacks, not dessert cups disguised as nutrition. I am talking about real, traditionally strained Greek yogurt, dense in protein, rich in living microbes, and metabolically unique. When eaten consistently and correctly, Greek yogurt does not just support digestion or help you feel full. It sends signals deep into your body that influence muscle preservation, gut health, insulin sensitivity, inflammation, and even the pace of biological aging itself. After 50, the body begins to age faster than most people realize. Not because of wrinkles or gray hair, but because of silent muscle loss, rising insulin levels, and chronic low-grade inflammation. These changes happen quietly, year after year, often long before disease appears. And here's the remarkable part: one simple daily food can help slow all three. Greek yogurt works not by forcing the body into stress or restriction, but by speaking a biological language the body already understands. Stay with me until the end, because this is not about adding another supplement to your routine. It is about changing one small daily habit that can quietly support strength, resilience, and healthier aging over time. One of the most overlooked drivers of aging is not what we see in the mirror. It is not wrinkles or gray hair. It is the slow, silent loss of muscle that begins far earlier than most people realize. Starting as early as our 30s, we begin to lose muscle mass at a steady rate. After 50, that loss accelerates sharply, often reaching about 1% per year. This process is called sarcopenia, and it is not merely cosmetic. Muscle is not just about strength, it is a metabolic organ. It plays a central role in blood sugar control, balance, mobility, and independence. When muscle declines, the body becomes less efficient at clearing glucose from the bloodstream. Insulin levels rise, inflammation increases, balance deteriorates, the risk of falls goes up, and with each of these changes, the biological aging process speeds up. This is why muscle loss predicts so much more than weakness. It predicts frailty, loss of independence, and even early mortality. In aging research, preserving muscle is one of the strongest levers we have to slow functional decline. What makes Greek yogurt particularly interesting in this context is not simply that it contains protein, but how that protein behaves inside the body. Greek yogurt is created through a straining process that removes much of the liquid whey and lactose. What remains is a dense matrix of complete protein that is especially rich in an amino acid called leucine. Leucine acts like a molecular switch for muscle protein synthesis. It activates a cellular pathway known as mTOR, which tells muscle cells that building and repair should begin. Now, mTOR often gets a bad reputation in longevity science, and for good reason. When it is chronically elevated by constant overeating and high insulin levels, it accelerates aging. But context matters. Short, targeted activation of mTOR is not harmful. It is essential. Without it, muscle cannot be maintained. The problem is not mTOR itself, but persistent activation without periods of rest. Greek yogurt provides a controlled physiologic signal. It delivers leucine alongside calcium, probiotics, and bioactive peptides that help modulate insulin response. This allows muscle-building signals to occur without the excessive insulin spikes that drive metabolic dysfunction. For older adults, this balance is critical. Muscle must be preserved, but not at the expense of metabolic health. Another advantage of Greek yogurt is digestibility. As we age, stomach acid production declines. Many people find dense protein sources like red meat harder to digest. Greek yogurt proteins are partially fermented and pre-digested, allowing amino acids to enter circulation more efficiently while placing less stress on the digestive system. This becomes increasingly important after 50, when the body develops what is known as anabolic resistance, muscle cells become less responsive to protein intake. Higher quality protein is required to stimulate the same response that occurred easily in younger years. Greek yogurt meets this need efficiently, delivering leucine-rich protein in a form the aging body can still use effectively. This is not about eating more. It is about sending the right signal at the right time in a form the body can understand. Another often overlooked aspect of muscle aging is what happens at night. During sleep, especially in older adults, muscle protein breakdown naturally increases. This means that even if you eat well during the day, you may still be losing muscle while you sleep. This is where the type of protein you consume becomes especially important. Greek yogurt is rich in casein protein. Casein is slow digesting. It releases amino acids gradually over several hours. This sustained release matters because it provides muscle tissue with a steady supply of building blocks during the overnight period when breakdown would otherwise dominate. Studies have shown that casein consumed in the evening can blunt overnight muscle loss and improve net muscle balance by morning. In practical terms, this means you wake up with less muscle breakdown and more metabolic stability. And muscle preservation is not just about strength or appearance. Skeletal muscle is one of the largest sites of glucose disposal in the body. The more muscle you maintain, the more efficiently your body clears glucose from the bloodstream. This directly improves insulin sensitivity and reduces the burden on the pancreas. This creates a powerful protective loop. Preserved muscle improves insulin sensitivity. Improved insulin sensitivity protects muscle from metabolic damage. Over time, this loop helps slow the progression toward type 2 diabetes, a disease that dramatically accelerates biological aging even before it is diagnosed. There is also a hormonal dimension. Adequate protein intake supports the production of insulin-like growth factor 1, or IGF-1. In moderation and in tissue-specific contexts, IGF-1 is necessary for muscle maintenance and repair. Greek yogurt appears to support physiologic IGF-1 signaling without pushing it into the chronically elevated range associated with increased disease risk. Again, this is about balance rather than extremes. The benefits become even more pronounced when Greek yogurt is paired with light resistance activity. This does not require heavy weights or intense training. Simple movements such as walking on an incline, body weight exercises, or resistance bands are enough. Mechanical tension from movement primes, muscle cells, and leucine from Greek yogurt amplifies the signal. Together, they help preserve muscle fibers and neuromuscular coordination. Over time, this translates into better balance, fewer falls, and greater independence. These outcomes matter deeply as we age. Falls are one of the leading causes of injury and loss of independence in older adults. Preserving muscle is one of the most effective ways to reduce that risk. Muscle health is also closely linked to mitochondrial function. Healthy muscle contains a high density of mitochondria, the energy-producing structures that decline with age. By maintaining muscle mass, you preserve mitochondrial number and efficiency. This supports endurance, metabolic flexibility, and resilience under physical and metabolic stress. There is emerging evidence that fermented dairy proteins produce bioactive peptides during digestion that reduce oxidative stress within muscle tissue. Muscle is particularly vulnerable to oxidative damage because of its high energy demands. Reducing this burden helps slow functional decline at the cellular level. Perhaps most importantly, Greek yogurt makes muscle preservation sustainable. Longevity is not built on short-term interventions. It is built on habits that can be maintained for decades. Greek yogurt is accessible, affordable, and adaptable. It does not require extreme dietary change or constant willpower. It simply provides the body with signals it recognizes. From a longevity perspective, the goal is not to maximize muscle at all costs. It is to maintain enough muscle to support metabolic health, mobility, and independence deep into older age. When eaten consistently and intelligently, Greek yogurt becomes a quiet ally in that process, supporting muscle without accelerating the aging clock. One of the most important shifts in aging science over the past decade is the realization that we do not age alone. Inside each of us lives a vast internal ecosystem made up of trillions of microorganisms. Together, they function almost like an additional organ, one that constantly communicates with our immune system, our metabolism, and even our brain. This internal ecosystem is known as the gut microbiome, and it plays a decisive role in how fast we age and how well we age. As we get older, the diversity of this microbial community tends to decline. This loss of diversity is not harmless. It is closely linked to chronic inflammation, immune dysfunction, insulin resistance, and increased intestinal permeability, a condition often referred to as leaky gut. When the gut barrier weakens, bacterial fragments can escape into the bloodstream. This triggers a persistent, low-grade immune response that quietly damages tissues over time. This process fuels what scientists call inflammaging, a slow-burning inflammation that accelerates biological aging and increases the risk of cardiovascular disease, neurodegeneration, and metabolic disorders. Greek yogurt becomes uniquely relevant here because of how it interacts with this microbial ecosystem. High-quality Greek yogurt contains live cultures, most commonly strains of Lactobacillus and Bifidobacterium. These organisms survive digestion and interact with existing gut microbes in ways that go far beyond digestion alone. But it is important to understand that the benefit is not simply about adding bacteria. What truly matters is how these microbes change the signals coming from the gut. Beneficial bacteria ferment undigested components of food into short-chain fatty acids such as butyrate, propionate, and acetate. These molecules are not waste products, they are powerful signaling compounds. Butyrate, in particular, serves as the primary fuel for the cells lining the colon. It strengthens the gut barrier and suppresses inflammatory pathways that would otherwise remain chronically active with age. When the gut barrier is strong, fewer inflammatory signals leak into circulation, reducing the systemic inflammatory burden that drives aging. Greek yogurt supports this process in two complementary ways. First, its probiotic strains contribute directly to short-chain fatty acid production. Second, its protein, calcium, and bioactive peptides create an intestinal environment that favors beneficial microbes over pathogenic species. Calcium has been shown to bind harmful bile acids, reducing their inflammatory impact on the gut lining and further protecting barrier integrity. This daily reinforcement matters. As we age, the gut becomes more vulnerable to disruption from antibiotics, illness, and dietary changes. A microbiome that receives consistent, stabilizing signals recovers more quickly from these stressors. Greek yogurt functions almost like a microbial anchor, helping maintain balance rather than allowing wide swings toward dysfunction. From an immune perspective, this stability is critical. Nearly 70% of the immune system resides in or around the gut. Beneficial microbes trained by fermented foods promote immune tolerance rather than immune overreaction. This helps reduce the risk of autoimmune conditions and slows immune aging, a process known as immunosenescence. The gut is also deeply connected to the brain through what scientists call the gut-brain axis. Microbial metabolites influence the production of neurotransmitters such as serotonin and gamma-aminobutyric acid. These chemicals shape mood, stress, resilience, and sleep, all of which indirectly influence aging by affecting hormonal balance and inflammatory tone. Regular consumption of fermented foods like Greek yogurt has been associated with improved mood stability and reduced stress responses. This may help explain why dietary patterns rich in fermented foods are consistently linked to better cognitive aging over time. What makes Greek yogurt especially valuable is its consistency. Longevity is not built through occasional interventions. It is built through repeated daily signals. Greek yogurt does not overwhelm the microbiome. It gently nudges it toward resilience, stability, and diversity, qualities that become increasingly important with age. From a metabolic perspective, The gut microbiome acts like a gatekeeper for energy balance. Certain microbial profiles are associated with better insulin sensitivity and efficient fat burning, while others promote fat storage, inflammation, and metabolic dysfunction. As we age, the balance often shifts in the wrong direction, even in people who are not overweight. Greek yogurt tends to shift this balance back toward microbes that support metabolic flexibility, the ability to switch smoothly between glucose and fat as fuel. This flexibility is a defining feature of long-lived populations around the world. When metabolism becomes rigid, the body struggles to adapt, insulin rises, inflammation increases, and aging accelerates. There is also growing evidence that the microbiome influences aging at the level of gene regulation. Short-chain fatty acids, especially butyrate, interact with epigenetic mechanisms that control which genes are turned on or off. These compounds help keep genes involved in stress resistance, DNA repair, and metabolic regulation active. In simpler terms, the signals coming from a healthy gut help maintain cellular programs that protect against aging. Greek yogurt's fermentation process enhances this effect. During fermentation, milk proteins are broken down into bioactive peptides. These peptides have been shown to reduce oxidative stress and improve endothelial function, both of which are closely tied to microbial signaling. When these peptides interact with beneficial gut bacteria, they create a feedback loop that reinforces vascular health and metabolic stability. This interaction helps explain why fermented dairy often shows stronger health effects than non-fermented dairy in observational studies. It is not just about nutrients. It is about how those nutrients are transformed and communicated through the microbiome. Another critical factor is resilience. Older adults are more vulnerable to disruptions in the gut ecosystem. A course of antibiotics, an illness, or even a short period of poor diet can push the microbiome into a state of imbalance that takes months to recover. A resilient microbiome rebounds faster, reducing the risk of cascading health declines that often follow these disruptions. Greek yogurt provides a steady microbial signal that promotes this resilience. It does not require perfection. You do not need large amounts or exotic probiotic strains. Consistency matters far more than intensity. A modest daily serving sends a repeated message to the gut ecosystem that favors stability over volatility. This stability has far-reaching consequences. A healthier gut barrier reduces the leakage of inflammatory compounds into the bloodstream. Lower inflammation supports better insulin signaling. Improved insulin signaling protects muscle and brain tissue, and a calmer immune system reduces unnecessary wear and tear on the body. Perhaps the most important insight is that the microbiome responds to what we do every day, not what we do occasionally. Longevity is built through repeated biological signals, not dramatic interventions. Greek yogurt becomes a form of nutritional communication, a daily conversation with the microbes that help determine how we age. When viewed through this lens, Greek yogurt is no longer just a food. It becomes a quiet partner in healthy aging, supporting immune balance, metabolic resilience, and cognitive health through one of the most powerful systems in the body. One of the most powerful accelerators of aging in modern society is not simply excess weight. It is chronically elevated insulin. Long before blood sugar reaches diabetic levels, high insulin quietly drives inflammation, fat storage, vascular damage, and cellular aging. In longevity research, insulin resistance is increasingly viewed not as a single disease, but as a systemic breakdown in metabolic signaling. Many people are surprised to learn that you can have normal blood sugar and still be aging faster than necessary because insulin is constantly high. This is sometimes called hidden insulin resistance. It often develops silently with age as muscle mass declines, visceral fat increases, and inflammation rises. The body needs more and more insulin to manage the same amount of glucose, and that constant hormonal pressure accelerates aging throughout the body. What makes Greek yogurt particularly interesting is that it improves insulin sensitivity without forcing the body into deprivation. It does not rely on extreme calorie restriction or carbohydrate elimination. Instead, it restores the signals that human metabolism evolved to respond to. Insulin is a storage hormone. When it remains elevated for long periods, cells become less responsive to it. The pancreas compensates by producing even more. This vicious cycle activates inflammatory pathways, suppresses cellular repair processes, and increases oxidative stress. The goal of a longevity-focused diet is not to eliminate insulin, but to keep it efficient and responsive. Greek yogurt supports this balance in several complementary ways. Unlike refined carbohydrates, it has a low glycemic load. Its carbohydrates are embedded within a protein and fat matrix that slows digestion and moderates the rise in blood glucose. This alone helps prevent sharp insulin spikes after meals. The protein in Greek yogurt plays a critical role as well. High-quality protein stimulates the release of hormones such as GLP-1, which enhance insulin sensitivity and promote satiety. These hormones help the body handle glucose more efficiently with less insulin. This is one reason meals that include adequate protein consistently produce better blood sugar control than carbohydrate-heavy meals. Fat also matters. Full-fat Greek yogurt slows gastric emptying, reducing the speed at which glucose enters the bloodstream. This creates a smoother, more controlled insulin response rather than rapid spikes and crashes. From a cellular perspective, this reduces metabolic stress and helps preserve insulin receptor function over time. Calcium adds another layer of benefit. Higher dietary calcium intake has been associated with improved insulin sensitivity and reduced fat accumulation in adipose tissue. Calcium influences intracellular signaling pathways that affect how fat cells respond to insulin, making them less prone to storing excess energy. Greek yogurt provides calcium in a highly bioavailable form, enhancing this effect. But perhaps the most underappreciated mechanism involves the gut microbiome. As we discussed earlier, microbial metabolites play a central role in metabolic regulation. Short-chain fatty acids produced by beneficial gut bacteria improve insulin sensitivity in muscle and liver tissue while reducing inflammation in fat tissue. By supporting a healthier microbiome, Greek yogurt indirectly enhances systemic glucose control. This microbiome-mediated effect helps explain why fermented dairy often outperforms non-fermented dairy in metabolic studies. Fermentation changes how nutrients interact with the body, producing compounds that directly influence insulin pathways. In large observational studies, regular yogurt consumption is consistently associated with a lower risk of type 2 diabetes, even when total calorie intake remains unchanged. This is a crucial point. Many strategies improve insulin sensitivity by forcing people to eat less. While effective in the short term, they are often difficult to sustain. Greek yogurt improves insulin sensitivity without requiring constant restriction. Instead, it improves how the body processes what is already being consumed. Muscle plays a key role here as well. Skeletal muscle is the primary site of glucose disposal in the body. By supporting muscle mass, Greek yogurt increases the body's capacity to absorb glucose without requiring high insulin levels. This creates a virtuous cycle. Better muscle health leads to better insulin sensitivity, which in turn protects muscle from metabolic damage. Timing also matters. Consuming protein-rich foods like Greek yogurt earlier in the day has been shown to improve glycemic control across subsequent meals. This phenomenon is known as the second meal effect. A single serving can influence insulin response hours later, smoothing metabolic fluctuations throughout the day. This effect may be mediated by reduced free fatty acid release from fat tissue and improved liver insulin sensitivity. In practical terms, the liver becomes better at regulating glucose output, reducing both fasting and post-meal blood sugar levels. This lowers the constant metabolic noise that accelerates aging at the cellular level. Chronic insulin elevation also suppresses autophagy, the cellular recycling process that removes damaged components. While Greek yogurt does transiently activate growth pathways due to its protein content, The overall improvement in insulin sensitivity allows for longer periods of low insulin between meals. This creates natural windows for cellular repair without the need for extreme fasting. What makes Greek yogurt especially compelling from a longevity perspective is its sustainability. It aligns with how human metabolism evolved. Our ancestors regularly consumed fermented foods, not as supplements, but as staples. Reintroducing these foods restores a form of metabolic communication that modern ultra-processed diets lack. Greek yogurt becomes not a diet food, but a metabolic stabilizer, quietly improving insulin signaling day after day, supporting healthier aging without drama or deprivation. One of the most damaging forces driving aging is not something we feel right away. It is chronic, low-grade inflammation that smolders quietly inside the body for years. Scientists call this process inflammaging. Unlike the short bursts of inflammation that help us heal from injury or fight infection, this kind of inflammation never fully shuts off. It slowly erodes tissues, damages cells, and accelerates nearly every age-related disease. At the molecular level, this process is driven by inflammatory signaling networks that become overactive with age. Pathways such as NF-kappa B remain switched on longer than they should. Inflammasomes, which are immune sensors designed to respond to danger, become hypersensitive. Pro-inflammatory cytokines, like interleukin-6 and tumor necrosis factor alpha, circulate at higher baseline levels. Together, they create a constant inflammatory background that places stress on organs throughout the body. This matters because inflammation does not stay confined to one system. It damages blood vessels, impairs insulin signaling, disrupts brain function, and accelerates the breakdown of muscle and connective tissue. Over time, this inflammatory burden becomes one of the strongest predictors of biological aging. Another contributor to this process is the accumulation of senescent cells. These are damaged cells that no longer divide but refuse to die. Instead, they secrete a toxic mix of inflammatory signals known as the senescence-associated secretory phenotype, or SASP. These signals spread inflammation to neighboring cells, amplifying tissue damage and accelerating functional decline. As we age, the number of senescent cells increases, and so does their inflammatory output. While no single food can eliminate these cells, reducing the inflammatory environment they create can significantly slow the damage they cause. This is where Greek yogurt begins to exert a meaningful influence, not by curing disease or suppressing inflammation completely, but by lowering the baseline inflammatory tone of the body. Greek yogurt acts on inflammation through multiple interconnected pathways. One of the most direct mechanisms involves bioactive peptides produced during fermentation. When milk proteins are broken down by specific bacterial strains, small peptides are released that have been shown to inhibit inflammatory signaling. These peptides can reduce activation of pathways like NF-kappa B, decrease oxidative stress, and improve endothelial function, the health of the lining of blood vessels. This is important because vascular inflammation plays a central role in aging. Inflamed blood vessels become stiff and less responsive, blood flow declines, tissues receive less oxygen and nutrients. Over time, this contributes to cardiovascular disease, cognitive decline, and reduced physical endurance. Greek yogurt also influences inflammation indirectly through the immune system. The majority of immune cells reside in and around the gut. When the gut microbiome is balanced, immune responses are better regulated. Beneficial microbes help train immune cells to respond appropriately rather than overreacting to harmless signals. Fermented foods like Greek yogurt promote immune tolerance. They help shift the immune system away from constant, low-level activation and toward a more balanced state. This reduces unnecessary inflammatory signaling while preserving the ability to fight real threats. Another critical factor is endotoxemia. When the gut barrier weakens, bacterial fragments such as lipopolysaccharides can leak into the bloodstream. Even small amounts can trigger systemic inflammation. This gut-derived inflammation is a major driver of metabolic dysfunction and aging. Greek yogurt helps reinforce the gut barrier. Its probiotics support the integrity of the intestinal lining, while calcium binds harmful bile acids that would otherwise irritate the gut wall. By reducing the leakage of inflammatory compounds into circulation, Greek yogurt lowers one of the most persistent sources of chronic inflammation in the aging body. The key message here is not that Greek yogurt treats inflammation like a drug. It does something more subtle and more powerful. It reduces the background inflammatory noise that makes every condition progress faster. There is a profound connection between inflammation and metabolic health. Chronic inflammation in fat tissue disrupts insulin signaling, leading to insulin resistance, increased fat storage, and even more inflammatory signaling. This creates a self-reinforcing cycle that accelerates aging. By calming inflammation at its source, Greek yogurt helps interrupt this cycle. The benefits extend to the cardiovascular system. Inflammation damages the inner lining of blood vessels, reducing their ability to dilate and deliver blood efficiently. Bioactive peptides from fermented dairy have been shown to improve endothelial function, helping blood vessels remain flexible and responsive. Better vascular health means improved circulation to the brain, muscles, and vital organs, all of which decline with age. Minerals found in Greek yogurt also play a supporting role. Calcium influences intracellular signaling in immune cells, reducing overactivation. Magnesium and potassium, often present in dairy, help counteract oxidative stress and stabilize cell membranes. These effects may seem small on their own, but when applied consistently over years, they contribute to a measurable reduction in the baseline inflammatory tone of the body. Another emerging area of interest is how diet influences the impact of senescent cells. While foods cannot remove these cells, improving metabolic and microbial health appears to reduce the inflammatory output associated with the senescence-associated secretory phenotype. In other words, the inflammatory signals coming from aging cells become less damaging when the surrounding environment is calmer and more balanced. Greek yogurt contributes to this calmer environment by supporting gut integrity, immune regulation, and metabolic stability. This systems level effect is critical because aging is not driven by a single failing pathway. It is the gradual breakdown of multiple systems interacting with one another. Chronic inflammation sits at the center of many of these interactions. Perhaps the most important insight is that inflammation does not need to be eliminated to improve longevity. It needs to be regulated. The immune system must remain capable of responding to injury and infection, but it must also learn when to stand down. Greek yogurt supports this balance by providing signals that promote immune restraint rather than constant activation. This is why consistency matters more than intensity. Anti-inflammatory drugs can suppress inflammation temporarily, but they do not restore the underlying regulatory systems. A daily food that gently lowers inflammatory tone over time can have a far greater impact on long-term health. Greek yogurt does not promise dramatic overnight change. Instead, it quietly reduces the background inflammation that makes every disease progress faster and every tissue age sooner. By lowering this baseline, the body becomes more resilient, more responsive, and better able to repair itself. From a longevity perspective, this is a powerful advantage. When inflammation is kept in check, insulin signaling improves, vascular function is preserved, cognitive decline slows, and physical capacity lasts longer. Greek yogurt becomes part of a broader strategy focused not on treating disease, but on creating an internal environment where disease has a harder time taking hold. And that is what truly distinguishes a longevity-supporting food from a passing trend. It does not force the body into extremes. It restores balance. Day after day, it helps quiet the inflammatory processes that quietly drive aging forward. When we step back and look at the science of longevity as a whole, one truth becomes very clear. Healthy aging does not come from dramatic interventions or extreme strategies. It comes from the signals we send to our bodies every single day. Greek yogurt when chosen correctly and eaten consistently, becomes one of those signals. Not because it is trendy, not because it promises miracles, but because it speaks a biological language the human body has understood for thousands of years through evolution. This is not about eating large amounts. More is not better. It is not about perfection or rigid rules. And it is certainly not about chasing the latest health fad. What matters most is consistency. A simple daily serving can quietly support muscle preservation, calm chronic inflammation, improve insulin efficiency, and reinforce the systems that help the body stay resilient with age. These effects may feel subtle day to day, but over months and years, they compound in powerful ways. Longevity is not built overnight. It is built through habits that are easy to maintain and gentle enough to repeat. Greek yogurt fits into real life. It does not demand sacrifice. It simply provides the body with steady, familiar signals that promote balance rather than stress. The goal is not to avoid aging. Aging is inevitable. The goal is to age on your own terms with strength, clarity, and independence for as long as possible. Start today. One simple daily habit can quietly protect your muscles, reduce inflammation, stabilize insulin, and support healthier aging from the inside out. If this video was helpful, please take a moment to like it, subscribe to the channel, and share it with someone you care about. Small actions, repeated consistently, are what truly change health over time.